You were there. You laughed, you cried, you learned to walk, you heard your name spoken for the very first time. And yet none of it exists for you now. Not one clear memory survives from your first few years of life. Why does the beginning of your story feel like someone else's? Sigmund Freud was the first to give this gap a name more than a century ago. He called it infantile amnesia, and he assumed the missing memories were repressed, buried, hidden away by the mind on purpose. Modern research tells a very different story, one that has nothing to do with repression and everything to do with how a young brain is built. Here's the strange part. Babies do form memories. They form them constantly. Psychologist Carolyn Rovey Collier spent decades proving this with a clever experiment involving infants and a mobile hanging above their crib. She tied a ribbon from the infant's ankle to the mobile, and within minutes, babies as young as 2 or 3 months old learned to kick their leg to make it move. Weeks later, when researchers reattached that same ribbon, the babies remembered. They started kicking again almost immediately. So the memory was there. Why can't you access anything like it now? The answer lives in a part of your brain called the hippocampus, the structure responsible for stitching moments into long-term, retrievable memories. In infancy, the hippocampus is still under construction. New neurons are being born and wired in at a rapid pace, a process that continues well into early childhood. Every time new neurons integrate into that circuitry, they can disrupt the very connections that older memories depend on. Your brain, in a very real sense, was renovating the building where those early memories lived, and the renovation didn't leave much standing. Developmental psychologist Patricia Bauer has spent years tracking exactly when childhood memories start to survive, and her research reveals something counterintuitive. The fade-out isn't sudden, it's gradual, and it lingers longer than most people assume. Children who are interviewed about an event at age 3 often lose access to it entirely by the time they turn 7 or 8, even though they clearly remembered it just a few years earlier. The memories don't vanish all at once. They erode, piece by piece, as the brain that stored them keeps changing shape underneath them. There's another piece to this puzzle, and it has nothing to do with biology at all. It has to do with language. Before a child can speak in full sentences, before they can organize an experience into a story with a beginning, middle, and end, they have no scaffolding to hang a memory on for later retrieval. Memory, especially the kind you can consciously recall and describe, depends heavily on narrative structure. You remember your 5th birthday party, not just because your brain recorded it, but because at some point you were able to tell yourself the story of it. The cake, the candles, the moment you blew them out. A 1-year-old has no such story to tell. The experience happens, but it has nowhere to be filed. This is why the earliest memories most adults can access tend to cluster around age 3 or 4, right around when children start constructing coherent verbal narratives about their own lives. It isn't a coincidence. It's the moment the filing system finally comes online. Culture shapes this timeline too, and this is one of the more surprising findings in the field. Studies comparing children across different countries have found that kids raised in cultures that emphasize detailed conversations about the past, parents who ask what happened next and how did that make you feel, tend to form retrievable, autobiographical memories earlier than kids raised in cultures with a more minimal storytelling style. Memory, it turns out, isn't just something that happens inside your head. It's partly built through conversation with other people. Think about what that means for your own earliest memory, whatever it happens to be. Chances are it wasn't just experienced, it was talked about afterward. A parent retold it at dinner. A photo prompted the story again on some birthday years later. Each retelling reinforced the memory structure, gave it a shape sturdy enough to survive the passage of time. The memories that do make it through childhood aren't necessarily the most significant ones. Often, they're simply the ones that got rehearsed the most, spoken about again and again until they hardened into something retrievable. This also explains a strange phenomenon researchers have documented for years: false early memories. Ask enough adults about their first memory, and a surprising number will describe scenes that never happened, or that happened to someone else in the family and were absorbed as if they were personal. A grainy photograph, a frequently repeated family story, can calcify into something that feels exactly like a memory, even though no actual recollection was ever there to begin with. The brain isn't lying to you on purpose. It's simply doing what it always does, filling gaps with the most plausible material available, whether that material came from lived experience or from someone else's retelling. So what does all of this mean for you? Sitting here with no memory of learning to walk? No memory of your first word? No memory of the countless days that shaped who you'd become? It means those days weren't wasted. Even without a retrievable memory attached to them, early experiences leave lasting marks. Emotional patterns, attachment styles, even the way your brain handles stress later in life, all of it can trace back to a period you'll never consciously recall. The memories are gone, but their fingerprints remain, embedded in the architecture of who you are rather than in any story you could tell about it. Maybe that's the real answer to the question. You can't remember being a baby, not because those years didn't matter, but because they mattered before you had a way to hold on to them. The self doing the remembering hadn't been built yet. And in a strange way, that self, the one asking this question right now, is still being shaped by moments it will never be able to recall.